How have you all found it today? And it's the last session. You're probably all thinking, where's the pub? But this session is going to wake you up. It really is going to be a very, very interesting session. Extremely exciting session. The reason why it's interesting is because it's talking about one of the most important changes that's happening in computing today. And so I'll talk briefly about, I want to introduce myself. I'm Julian Harris, Head of Technology Research at CognitionX. I've been creating internet software for the last 25 years, and 8 of that was at Google. I created the first Alexa skill for UK government. So today, we've got 4 practitioners who are working at the very cutting edge of customer care for conversational AI. And all the stories are going to give you a good understanding of what state of the art is and take away what good looks like. So, that's me. I'm going to also give you a little bit of an update into what my team's been doing. Now, we've been answering questions that our customers have been asking. One of them has been, what are the tools available for working with conversational AI? And so the answers that we have for that, if I press this button, it stopped working. I'm going to just click. There we go. There, it's moving now. Is we catalog 700 different conversational AI technologies. And then our customers ask, well, but how do you understand what's being said at this part here? And so we then provided more research around what that understanding looks like, to be able to put together all of the pieces. And each one of these represents an industry of products, APIs, and open source, to put the pieces of the puzzles together and allow them to be able to create great solutions working with voice and text. And then they said, well, okay, that's fine, but what about machine learning and data science? We have programmers who know nothing about that. And so we said, well, okay, we have a workshop. And this workshop allows your developers to get experience with natural language without any of those skills. And so they get exposure to 30 different products, and there's no substitute for direct experience, and so they actually get hands-on experience working with these products. So they come away going, I know what that shape looks like. And one of the themes you're going to see in this session is that data has changed the way you build solutions. If you're going to work with a machine learning capability, then the data changes the experience. And you're going to see this again and again in the examples today. So, there are a number of forces in play about customer support. These forces are my story to present to you why there are huge opportunities in customer care and the opportunity to innovate in that space using conversational AI. The first one is there's actually a decline in phone calls. This has been happening for some time, and it may not be obvious to some of you, but some of you may know other people who literally don't want to take a phone call. People don't use it. What else is happening? Messaging, text, and audio is exploding. Equally, video calls are exploding. The use of that as a tool every day for communication. And finally, a lot of call centers are getting automated. So here's a little bit of color as to what I meant by this. Phone call usage since 2017 in the UK has been dropping, and this is mobile as well. And in the US, the same thing for customer service specifically. It's dropping, and it's not picking up anytime soon. So, however, messaging growth is enormous. Now, WhatsApp is the top there. Across the world, there's billions of messages being sent every day. Let's talk about the video. There's actually a standard way that web browsers can, if they so choose, communicate with the audio and video in real time. It's been around for some time. Now check these stats out. So Google Chrome in 2018 alone, every week was experiencing something in the region of 1.5 billion minutes a week of audio and video. And that's absolutely increased since then. And there's more than 1,300 projects using this technology. Now, the poster child is Zoom.us, who just posted their year-on-year revenue, which is 118% year-on-year growth, and it was 275% the year before. These are clearly up and to the right trajectories, clearly things that are not going away anytime soon, and clearly opportunities for the customer care to be innovated. So now what I'm going to do is I'll briefly introduce some of our fantastic speakers, and then they will present their story in this space. So first of all, we've got Hans van Daan, the CEO of Robocopy. He's come all the way from the Netherlands today to talk to us about his experience. Now, he runs a company that is actually trying to answer the question, how do I get the right skills to even create these solutions? Because it's a new skill set. He's going to talk about his experience where his customers have been innovating in customer care, empowered by the skills that his system online has taught them. I'll just go back one. And then, moving from there, we've got Prins Jaspal of Contexta 360, Chief Revenue Officer and co-founder. And what he's going to talk about is his experience with really successful implementations of speech analytics with natural language. So it's all fine to say this is what people are saying, but his system, you'll see examples of where he's also talking about the impact that you have when the system can also say, I think it's about this theme, and we actually suggest this action for this kind of call. And finally, and then we have Richie, Barter, CEO of AltViz, is going to be talking about how this natural language technology can also affect other parts of the enterprise. So it's not just the customer part, but the chain and the downstream impact can also help. And finally, then, we've got Naomi Fitzpatrick, who's from Intercom, talking about the importance of text and the opportunities there are by using messaging in that new channel that your customers are using. And so I just want to recap to say that the way that customers are behaving is changing. And this set of case studies is going to give you great insight as to what you can do to take advantage of that opportunity. So we'll start out with Hans. Please, bring an applause for Hans. The ticker's over there.
Yep. Thank you. Hello. Show of hands, who knows who this is? A few people. Yeah, so this is Maeve, and she's from a TV show, Westworld. And Westworld is actually a theme park, and it takes place in the near future. And people will go there, and they will interact. Is this on? Because I can hear myself here, though. What's better, here? Or? All right, perfect. All right, so this takes place in the near future, and it's a theme park, and people go there, and they interact with robots. So Maeve is actually a robot. And what's interesting about this show, Westworld, is that you'll see that these hosts are actually sort of servants-oriented towards these guests, like they have to serve all their needs. But they're also very persuasive, and they try to tempt people and get them to do things and explore things of their minds that they don't usually interact with. And you also see that it's a combination of some AI and actually people writing the dialogues, right? And if you look at the chatbot and voice ecosystem that we have today, we see that they can be used for service and sales, and that there's always that combination of AI and actually people just writing words. And this one's from the movie Her, right? It's about a guy also in the near future. He buys an OS, a voice assistant, starts talking to it, and he builds a relationship with her, and she's helping him out. And at one point, they fall in love, and everything looks great. And then at one point, he sort of discovers that she's talking to tens of thousands of other people, and then he sort of ruins the experience, and he drops out, and he ends up in the uncanny valley. But it sort of shows us that people and bots will be living together, they'll be working together, and they have to learn to trust each other and learn to communicate with each other. So we're going to have a new job called conversation design, right? And oh wow, these fonts are really messed up. So that's what we do. So we write dialogue. This is like a power slide. Dialogue that makes chatbots and voice assistants more helpful, natural, and persuasive. And we now focus more and more on actually teaching other people that skill set and sort of really promoting the role of the conversation designer. Yeah, we have clients as well. So this is one that's great fun. It's a cruise ship. Every cabin has a smart speaker, and people can ask questions. Is there sushi? What time is bingo? Is there a karaoke bar? Everything that's going on this cruise ship, people can actually ask questions about it. But this one for a railroad station where people are in the train, and 20 minutes before they get to their destination, they become very anxious. And where do I have to go? And when I get to Paris, it's so large. How do I find my way around? And it's a very simple customer service use case that we do. And we work with a lot of large companies where we actually audit the chatbot that's already there, identify who within the company can become a conversation designer. We then teach them and have them work in such a way that it actually allows to scale throughout the organization. Because everybody's going to be needing about 50 conversation designers 5 years from now, But what we get most excited about is really work with tech companies that build conversational technologies and help them figure out what that department, that AI department 5 years from now is going to look like. Who's going to be working there, what's the skill set that they need, and then we develop curriculum together for that. And if there's one thing that I'd like you to take away from this for today, it's actually this slide. Because if we're going to have a conversation between a robot and a person, then two things really stand out, right? One has an artificial brain, and the other one has a human brain, and they both need completely different things, right? So a robot needs to understand intent and entities and context, and it needs structured data, right? So natural language understanding actually turns natural speech into structured data. Those 700 companies that Julian just mentioned, they focus on that mainly, right? But on the other hand, we have a person that has a human brain, right? And they need empathy and helpfulness and encouragement. So as conversation designers, we need to understand how to do that. Both brains have their own limitations and capabilities, and they both have different triggers that they need. And I don't know if you were in the last session, but our good friend here on the first row dared me to put a piggy nose on that person, so we just did. So as a conversation designer, we not only need to understand technology, we need to understand technology, psychology, and language, pretty much. That makes good conversations. And if you look at your teams and your companies right now, it should have that same balance, right? So now usually you have about 10 engineers working on the project and one writer that shows up like 4 hours a week and really doesn't really know what they're doing, right? And that way it's never going to work. So you want to have that balance in your organization as well, and that allows you to develop a conversation design team that can scale throughout the organization. And there's a lot of stuff really that people need to learn. So these are all techniques that we teach in our academy that are new, and some of them come from traditional copywriting that can be applied in conversational AI. But it's a completely new job and a completely new skill set, and it takes a very different person to actually work on this, particularly non-engineers. So there's three mistakes really that companies make, right? So they start with the technology, they focus on knowledge management, and they start with the business process. So usually we buy a lot of technology, then we sort of develop that flow chart of how we do things in the company, and then we add as much information that we have in our knowledge management systems. That's not the way to go. What we want to do is focus much more on the psychology of conversations and learn to understand that. So this is a really bad joke. So two fish are swimming in the water, and then they swim into a third fish, and they're like, oh, good afternoon, how you doing? And the third fish says, well, isn't the water lovely today? And then the two fish look at each other and are like, what the hell is water? And the point is that people communicate all day. And we're very good at it, and we're very skilled, and we've been doing it all our lives, but we have no idea what we're doing. Just as a fish is surrounded by water all its life, it doesn't know about the water, the same way people don't know about the communication. So what we need to do is really understand how communication between people works and deconstruct that so that we can then very structurally apply it when we design these conversations. Oh, wow. So there's something that we call the cooperative principle. It's developed by, or identified by Paul Grice. Anyone that studied communication is familiar with this. It should have a wonderful photo of that man. But it pretty much means that when people communicate with each other, we always try to help each other out. And we provide the right amount of information. What we say is truthful. What's being said is relevant to the conversation, and we use the right tone of voice. These things come natural to people, but for bots, they're super complicated. So we ask, do you know what time it is? Yes. Is in fact, a valid answer to that question, but people would understand that that's not the answer that you want. It's the same here. Well, in Amsterdam, it's 4:10, in London, it's 3:10, in New York City, it's that. It's still an answer to the question, but it's not the question that we want. So communication is very nuanced, and people are very advanced. If you look at this one, how many rooms are in your house? Well, let's see. There's the living room, 2 bedrooms, a playroom, a kitchen. That's how people talk, right? People don't answer that by giving a number. So a chatbot would say, oh, please answer using a number. That's how most people solve this. If you want to do a better job, you talk to your engineers, you create a list of all the different rooms that are out there, you create synonyms for that, right? And then you could sort of pick up what's being said there. It's a nice project, takes about 2 weeks, right? Or then there's clever people that say, no, well, we can add the commas and then see how many entities are between the commas, and that gives us the number that we need. But if you ask someone, how many rooms are in your house? Oh, let's see, there's a living room, there's 2 bedrooms, there's a playroom. Oh, sorry, how many rooms is that? And then someone will give you an answer. So what you see is by understanding the psychology, you can use language to make your technology work much better. And most companies in these situations waste about 2 weeks in development, where it's actually very simple. So if you get conversation designers, give them a fair seat at the table with the engineers, you're really going to create better experiences much faster. You can pay using PayPal or the credit card. Do you want to pay? I'll use MasterCard. Don't expect a yes or no answer to a yes or no question, right? That's not how people communicate. Are you all set for the meeting today? Oh, what time does it start again? Please answer yes or no. If you think about it, that's a very weird response to that question, right? But that's how people talk. And why do we do that? Because we're very advanced communicators, but bots are really silly and stupid. So you would have to, this would be the ultimate answer at one point, right? But you need a lot of context for that. I always like this one. It's called pareidolia. So there's not a single person in this room that does not see a face in this building. And even though you know that's a building, you see a face. That's freaky, right? This one's really cute. This one too. When people hear a voice, within 1.5 seconds, they create a persona and they get some understanding of who that voice belongs to. Is it a man or a woman? How old is he or she? Where are they from? How do they relate to me? How can they be of value to me? It's the same with chat. When you chat with something, Tinder is the best example, right? You start talking to someone and you build up this image of who you're talking to, right? You sort of start picturing how they can, what role they can have in your life and how happy you're going to be for 20 years, and then you meet them and then it's a big disappointment, I've heard. And it's the same with chatbots, right? So if you have 1 million people talking to your chatbot, that means that you can have 1 million different personas because everybody's going to create their own in their own minds, right? But that's not what you want as a brand. So you need to very carefully try and take control of that process of how you create your own bot persona. Because otherwise it's going to be inconsistent, less likable, and less trustworthy. And then you end up in the dreaded uncanny valley. So I think most people will be familiar with this, right? So it means that something is very mechanical, then people are okay communicating with it. It feels it's okay, it's fine. And if it's very natural, like Maeve in Westworld, that's fine too. But if you're not really sure what it is, and it starts to feel a little weird and awkward, and that's what we call the uncanny valley. That's when in the movie Her, he discovers that she's talking to tens of thousands of other people, and it doesn't fit and resonate anymore with the image that he's created, right? So what you want to do on one hand is make use of people's inclination to engage with something natural, but at the same time very much manage the expectation and help them keep aware that it's a chatbot and it's fake, and that's sort of how you avoid the uncanny valley. So this is the stuff that you need to be thinking about, and we've put together a design process, this is part of it, that is actually working quite well, and we feel that conversation design teams should all be working through this method. So what we do, if we have the use case, we identify the bot needs and the user needs. So if we're going to have a conversation between a bot and a user, they both want something out of it, right? So if I'm a user and I'm super upset that I've tried changing my address 5 times already and it's still not working, so I'm angry and I'm pissed off and I'm going to leave this company if it doesn't get sorted out. That's, how a user will be in that conversation. And to the bot we say, well, in order to change an address, you need to know the current address, the new address, date of birth for verification, sort of gets a list of things to ask. And we then do the sample dialogue. So we sit people back to back from each other so they can't see each other, and we just let them have the conversation. It's like improvisational theater. And we'll learn a lot of things. So whatever question the user then asks, we figure, oh, there's probably more people with that question. Right? And then we iterate on that. And what we do is proactively take away all the anxieties and sort of take whatever motivates them to get them through the dialogue. And that's when we create a flowchart. And this creates more natural conversations. We'll validate that with users in a Wizard of Oz test, and we use an expert rewrite where we apply more psychology. So we won't say, oh, I'm going to ask you 5 questions. We say, I'm going to have to ask you 5 questions. For most people, this only takes a minute, and then your TV's working in no time. So what I'm doing there is, I'm using social proof, expectation management, and the reward afterwards to increase motivation. And there's a lot of techniques that you can apply. So this is the value irritation model that Bill Price, he was one of the sort of founders of customer service at Amazon. And what it means is that there's things that's valuable to the customer and things that's valuable to the company. Well, if it's not valuable to either one, you just eliminate that altogether, right? And if it's valuable to the customer, but not so much to the company, that's usually your customer service stuff, right? That's where you automate it. Use chatbots for that, changing an address, etc. And things that are valuable to the company, but not so much for the customer, you want to simplify that. You can use chatbots and voice assistants for that as well. The big difference between the two, though, is that in the bottom right, for customer service, you have users that are actually motivated because they have an issue that they want to have resolved. And on the other hand, we're dealing with people that aren't motivated, so we need to work a little harder when we design these conversations. So when you design, it's always good to sort of think of, where in this diagram am I starting? So in customer service, they're motivated, but the chances of it becoming very emotional are very great. So that's something that you have to design for as well. So to increase motivation, you can use the simple question technique. Do you ever think about the future? Right, so if somebody's not like on a website, chatbot pops up and want to get people into that conversation. Do you ever think about the future? Yes, no, sometimes. This is stuff that increases conversion rates. Or use the exceptional benefit. These are just techniques from advertising that can be applied in conversation design. Want to get a discount by answering a few simple questions? Yes, no. Tell me more, right? 2 positive options there, that usually helps. Or choice architecture. Want to know how to win friends and influence people? Of course, yes, maybe, no. So if you add more positive answers, then the odds of your user selecting a positive answer greatly increase. It's very simple how that works. And here's small commitments. Want to answer 3 simple questions? Yes, no. So when people say yes 3 times in a row, that increases the likelihood of them saying yes to the 4th question. So what we have a lot of times is that, particularly in finance, if you have to ask for an investment firm, we have to ask the question, what's the origin of your money or something? And people would drop out. They would sort of remember to make coffee and do laundry, and everybody would abandon the chatbot. So what we did is we just said, all right, thank you for staying. Am I doing a good job? Yes, okay. Do you have another moment? Yes, okay. You're ready for the next question? Yes. What's the origin of your funds? And then they answer that question. You see conversion rates go up. So even in customer service, all these motivating techniques are actually very helpful. And then we have managing emotions. So this is what we call the escalation prevention model that was developed in-house. So there's 3 negative emotions, right? There's fear, there's sadness, and there's anger, and that can lead to undesired behavior. So somebody that's afraid can become inactive or do the wrong thing, right? So you don't want that. So there's all these different writing techniques that you can just apply to deal with that. So if you're in finance, people that are afraid and become inactive, those are the people that sort of stop opening the envelopes, right, and get in trouble that way. And with sometimes you want to depersonalize the situation, so you never say, oh, your account was closed because you didn't pay in time. You want to depersonalize and say, oh, well, we always get the funds at the end of the month. This time we didn't get them, so we automatically close down the account. Let's try and figure out what's going on, as opposed to saying, you did not pay, and therefore you are shut down. So yeah, for all these situations, you can just use this model. It's actually very helpful. So really, what I want you to take away from this is that as conversation designers, we need to understand the limitations and capabilities of both the artificial and the human brain, and understand what triggers they need, and really get to the point where we see that natural language creation is equally important as natural language understanding, and that we want to develop our teams in such a way that there is a good balance between engineering, language, psychology, and that everything is equally represented. And that's what's going to create better chatbots. Yeah, so we train and certify people, and we have assessments. So that's going to help you sort of figure out. You have 1,000 customer service agents who is trainable to become a conversation designer. And we have curriculum, obviously have some consultancy and an agency around that. So yeah, reach out, happy to engage. Oh, I went over time pretty well, right? Yeah, but I warned you already.
Yeah, I did.
That was good. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Hans. Wonderful. So hopefully the message here is about the fact that there's the very strange thing I find about this space is that we as people know language so well. There's actually a problem because we just say, it'll just talk to us, and this just doesn't happen. So hopefully Hans is giving you a little bit of insight into how there's actually a very specific discipline that is involved in actually coming up with great experiences in this space. So next we have Prins Jaspal, who's going to talk about what happens when you have a system that can understand that to some extent in the customer care space and the opportunities that presents. Thanks, Prins.
Thank you.
I'm good.
Are you all right?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Thank you, Julian, for having us. I will stand over here. I think the microphones works. I'm Prins Jaspal, one of the co-founders of Contextor 360, currently acting as Chief Revenue Officer for the company. What do we do? I built a short timeline. I don't want to talk too much about how great we are, but let me give you a few metrics. We are quite young, 2.5 years old. We got already 4 office locations around the world. We have already 50 super clever employees with a PhD background, and they studied for the last 3 years for speech intelligence, so that's super relevant for us in our hiring criteria. We analyzed a lot of customers for our customers. So if you have called the customer service department, you might have been recorded by our platform. We have more than terabyte data already as a startup, and we processed more than 7.6 million minutes already in this year. What are we doing? That's where I like to talk about what you probably know, and if you work for a big enterprise, then you recognize this. You got a customer, you got your database, and your CEO wants that database to be filled with good data. So you got a contact center probably, and those contact centers have probably a gold mine of data. We all know it and prove it. And this is, I think, the problem that we are trying to resolve, because the reality that we see is that in a contact center, you got expensive agents, and they got different tasks. All those agents cost me euros or pounds. It depends in which country you are. But one thing for sure is that I want them to be busy with filling in the right amount of data in my CRM system, so I can actually be having a competitive advantage. I know who my customers are, I can cross-upsell, I know what my churn rates are, all those metrics. And that's why it is important that they are busy with filling in customer data. Sounds really easy, but I've been a call center agent. I had a lot of frustration, and I will tell you how the reality actually looks like. The reality looks like you got the database, you got the customer, you got your contact center, and he calls me on the moment that one of the digital channels is not working. So every company is investing a lot of money into apps, social media, email, chat, form, IVRs. And you probably have done some projects over the last few months with a link to that. This is what we call digital channels. And these are channels where we know what you're doing. We know which click, what time, where, which device, you call it, I got structured data. With other words, if you are a low imported customer, have no complexity to resolve, or I cannot sell you a new product, go to the self-service channel, and that's my recommendation for my company. So let's look at the high-value customers, high-value inquiries, and high-complexity cases. This is where you have probably still agents in a contact center. And this is one of the reasons you are not going to replace agents by automation. Because what if it is your premium customer that needs help right now? Try the app, try the chat, is not getting the answer he wants or needs. What if it is a complaint affecting your NPS rates, complex situations, or you just have a question which is not findable on the left side? That's the moment that I pick up my phone and I would like to chat to the company that I have my service running with. And one thing that I can promise you right now, it's going to impact your revenue, your customer experience, or your branding. And this is the moment of matters. You probably have 2 customer interactions with your customers a year, and they are 89% of the time on your digital channels. So what are you doing for that 2%? What tools have you in place to really help the customer when he's really asking your help because he's paying a certain service for you? We think that there is a big gap on the right side between the experience I have, between the understanding an agent has, and more importantly, the pressure to fill in the data of the experience and understanding. The world around us have changed. I got 3 problems and not 1 problem because I knew by your app already what my second problem is going to be, because people talk online about it, so I will talk online about it. I'm more angry on the moment I call my agent. And another fact is that I know probably more than him about the company at the moment that I'm talking to him. So this poor agent has probably 8 seconds to really understand what the problem is, to identify the customer, and then do the requirement for you. Fill in what he heard. And we did an investigation, and with our customers, only 5 to 10% of the customer interaction have been captured into a CRM system. So you don't know 90% of what happened via customer call. So that brings me to this slide, what the customer said, what the agent understood, and what the agent entered. And this is the reality what I'm dealing with if I talk to a lot of organizations, still today. And we are trying to help and actually restructure this process for a lot of companies, because what they now get is unstructured data. They do know where the call was about. And I can give you an example of the leading parcel delivery company in the country that was really proud to tell me that they knew where the most incoming call was about. You can guess, it was about parcels. And my question was, can you tell me, are they misdelivered? Are they broken? Were they not home? And everyone looks in the room. You had that list, right? No, we don't. And this is a problem I recognize for every industry. So what we do basically, we make sure that your database is not going to get a black hole, because we are moving to a generation where if customers contact you, you need to know why they are contacting you. So you can give them a certain competitive advantage at the end of the day, a certain service that they are willing to stay longer or to pay more with you. And how do we do that? We do that really simply by putting a platform, a speech intelligence system, which we built in-house, and that captures all of your voice customer interactions. And what we typically do for kind of use cases, that is either increase your revenue, remove cost, improve your customer experience, and I can keep going on. What is really important to know is that our technology has been built on our own IP, so there's no dependency on Amazon or Google. Yeah, I don't think so you can see it really well, but we have multiple languages, so we can understand multiple languages, so you as a company can scale really fast. And I think this is the game changer, and this is, I think, as well why we have been invited to sit here. Traditionally, a lot of speech intelligence vendors are measured by accuracy, and my tip is don't do that. Don't do that for your business, because you're working backwards in time. I think relevancy is the new measurement. Can you pick up the words that are relevant for your organization? Because a bank is not interested in getting to know if you are right. They are more interested in what kind of mortgage do you want, what is your salary, and what is the rate that I will get at the end of the day. And a retailer is not interested in how you are. They want to know on which specific branch you have called for. And I will give you certain examples later. To pick up those brands that are not in a normal dictionary, or imagine Louis Vuitton, which is not a standard word, you need to tune those words. And this is where we are making the game changer. We are really good and really flexible, really fast in tuning industry words for you. So if you have certain words that are not used by your competitors, we can recognize that. So you will get at the end of the day your own AI engine, which is flexible, fast, have a high quality to deliver, not only a high accuracy level, but also relevant. Our technology has been embedded with 3 layers. And this layer 1, we all know it. We know the speech to text layer. Layer 2, you probably know it as well. That is text to understanding. And I think we are really making a differentiator in our 3rd layer, which is understanding to insight to action. So if you had a phone call, what is the next best suggested action for the agent? Or if you have thousands of phone calls, can you then scientifically prove that those words are leading to churn and those words are leading to profits? And that is where the fun starts. This is a dashboard that we create for one of our customers. You can see that I can narrow down into any agent in my contact center, regardless of the volumes. And I can actually look how she greets compared with the top performers. Maybe it is in the greetings that she is making a difference. Hey, is she using the right words? Is she being compliant? Or I just want to know what her duration is, because every call costs me money. Why is her duration longer than the rest? And now I can have different one-on-one. A McKinsey study have proved that you need to give 20% of somebody's time to improve somebody. So average work week, 40 hours, 4 hours a week. Do you really give as a manager the 4 hours your employee deserve? And if your answer is yes, what do you say in those 4 hours? Gut feeling or data? And I think data is going to bring you further. This is just one example. This is an executive dashboard that we created for a bank. They want to know all the report that calls that have the word disappointed with their competitors. They want to know all the non-compliance calls in Q1 and get a report of it. Or they just want to have a call with the churn profile over the 70%. And we give it in one report. More importantly, on the left side, we can give all alerts. So if somebody applies for a mortgage, have the bank employee asked for the salary? Is this a person or potential customer valid? Is she or she able to pay off the debts that she has with our previous financial institutions? So we can already do certain checks, so you can reduce call times and focus on your industry, which is selling mortgages. This is how a screen looks like. I'm not going to show the demo. If you guys would like to have a demo, go to our website, but this is what you get. So you send an audio file or a video file, and what you see is on the right side a transcription of the conversation. So this is really boring. Imagine you have thousands of phone calls, and you transcribe all of those thousands of minutes. You can't do anything with it. Where the fun really starts, in my opinion, is, I don't know if you guys can hear me, but over here you can see all the found questions in one eye shot. We can see if there's a compliance case. On the left side, you get a dashboard where you see talk ratios. We measure word per minute, and with measuring word per minute, we can actually say you talk way faster than him, and he's more successful in this environment. On the left-hand side, you can say what you should say and not say in green and red. And we can also compare. Do you talk too fast or too slow? And those are the most likely the things why an agent is outperforming somebody else or not. Because he's simply using the right words, listening to the customer, and asking the right questions. And we can create the insights for you now. So, takeaways. We get automated insight into all the customer questions. We make use of AI for customized lexicon, so you can recognize the brand's names, you can recognize financial terms that are only used in your fund, or you can recognize product names that, like Philips. Philips have the most old product called Lumnia lighting, but it was quite tough for them to find a speech recognition tool that can understand the word Lumnia, because most of the calls are about people that purchase a product and want to have questions about the Lumnia product. And this is also one of the reasons they choose for us. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs chose for us, quite funny story, because they thought that most of their incoming calls are about visas or passports. Installed CognitionX 360 found out that most of their incoming calls is about the Brexit. A lot of Dutch citizens, like me, living in London, have called the Dutch embassy and asked, what do I need to do? And they had a process. They didn't know, call me back in a week. And this increased the call times in the call center. So they install Contexta and they find out, hey, maybe we should open a web page, what to do if you're a Dutch citizen in another country, and call volumes dropped. So it's a great way that you can use this in any organization. Philips Healthcare, they have their own speech recognition tool. I don't know if you do know that Philips have their own speech recognition tool, but selected us, Contexta 360. Conduent, world's largest call center. So if you are a customer of Vodafone, Peugeot, Apple, call a brand, you probably have been in touch with Conduent agents. They got more than 90,000 agents deployed all over the world, and they are using our software. So this is a great confirmation that the biggest call center is seeing the value that a lot of companies that we are trying to bring to a lot of companies. This was just my slide. In my own world, I would say thank you, and then my engine would say, hey, that's positive, and that's an open sentiment. If you want to add us on LinkedIn, we have a LinkedIn page. I'm available, and Context360.com is our website for more information.
Thanks, Prins. Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you. Wonderful, great. Okay, well, so what's interesting here is that systems are starting to see more about what's going on, answering this fundamental business question, which is, I don't understand what my customers are saying. And so this theme's continuing now. I wanted to now introduce Richie Barter from AltViz, who's going to present his story and how his solution is helping enterprises also answer this question.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. So, my name is Richie. I'm the CEO and founder of AltViz. And we are all about trying to make intelligent automation simple. And it's a slightly broader context than what you've heard about so far today. A lot of what's been heard in this session is around customer success and customer support. We operate at a slightly broader context than that, and we work with very large organizations to help automate lots of different complicated processes that they have. We've been around for about 7 years, and what we're trying to do is we're trying to use a combination of AI, machine learning, and cloud computing through an intelligent automation platform that really helps to impact businesses. There's a real goal in a lot of large organizations to increase efficiency. And that efficiency is coming through enhancements in the way they use their data. And what Julian's asked me to talk about today is some examples from the insurance sector, which we have. But I also wanted to touch on, we're working with heads of supply chain, we're working with CFOs, CTOs, who are looking for ways to combine the data sets across their organization, both structured and unstructured, in a way that can make their operations more efficient. When we're talking to the C-suite executives about what they can do, we use this AAA paradigm to explain our platform. The idea of access, analyze, and act is a very simple message that we use. On the access side, we talk about getting access to both structured and unstructured data, and I think that's where this starts to align with the themes we've heard today. Unstructured data, as we've seen, can come in voice recordings from call centers, it can come from chatbots, and a range of other sources. From structured data, obviously you have your core systems, you've got your ERPs, and a range of other core systems that underpin the performance of every large organization. But bringing all of those together in a meaningful way is really challenging, and there's a wealth of opportunities to do really interesting things and solve really interesting use cases when you bring those data sets together. So our platform allows people to access those data sets quite quickly and easily. We then bring them together and we analyze them, and we have a range of componentry in our platform that allows us to quickly customize and address a whole range of problems. We use techniques around natural language processing, machine learning, we have inference, we've pre-built classifiers, and so forth. And then once we've done the accessing and the analyzing, we can then bring that together into action. And that's where the real value comes for organizations. By bringing these new data sets together, we can trigger automated actions throughout the organization, whether they are updating other core systems to drive new processes, whether it's to message other teams and drive other areas, functional areas of the business to do things, whether it's to actually reach out to customers directly, whether it's to generate analytics and statistics. And what we found is by having this combination of abilities together in one platform, you can do an awful lot of things. So now turning to the customer success piece that we're looking at today, I have two really good examples that I think bring home how the use of voice data and the components that we have for handling voice data allow us to achieve this intelligent automation. The first one I'm going to take you through is around the world of car insurance. So in the world of car insurance, when someone has a car accident, the point at which they ring up the car company or the insurance company and they say, I've had an accident, this is what's happened, is a really important point for the insurance company. They set the reserve of how much they expect to have to pay out against that car accident at that point in time. Now, they may amend that over time, and that volatility has an impact for that business, but that's a real driver of profitability for every single insurance company that, particularly listed ones. And getting that guesstimate of how much that claim is going to be accurate is something that they want to be really, really specific about. And when we were approached by this insurance company, we're working with a number of them, but this particular one is the example I'm going to make, is they were manually reviewing the performance of their call handlers. And they were only getting to about 5% of the calls they had. And so I've got a little kind of walkthrough demo that we use with executives, which I hope will kind of bring this to life a little bit for you, because it's all quite abstract otherwise. So,
I was driving to work this morning and going around a bend on the main road. A car came around the corner on the wrong side of the road, so I had to swerve to avoid it. They never even stopped. The car caught the grass verge.
So that's the wonderful Rachel who works on my team, and we got her to do that, much to her disgust. But this is a very basic example of what an insurance claim might be at point of initial contact. And what we're trying to do here is we're trying to access this voice recording and say, okay, are there terms in this voice recording that we can extract that allow us to do something interesting with this data that's not being currently used? And can we do that in a way that, if we bring it together, will allow us to do something interesting? And what we then do is, once we've derived those tokens, those interesting terms, we pass that through a classifier that allows us to say, okay, can we infer from the information that we've looked at the severity of this car accident? Because that drives the reserving, and ultimately that impacts how much cash the insurance company hold in their books. And so this is a really interesting thing to see laid out like this, because you have a range of different types of buckets you could put this claim in. There's a lot of noise in this when it's just done by a human, and what they'd like to do is have this in the background as a system that can monitor in kind of a periodic sweep to check that there aren't any gaps. And instead of a kind of a quarterly review of what's happening, we can actually, over every evening, check every claim that's come in that day, identify opportunities where we think there's a serious injury, and then see what's happened on the other side. And so then that drives the next step, which is the ACT piece of our framework, where we actually then trigger a whole load of downstream actions. We can add a new record to the claim system. We can set up a new task alert for a specific claims team to look at. We can generate exception reports, and we can do emails. And so what I'm getting at here, the key is that we're bringing to life for this insurance company a way for them to actually improve their bottom line financial reporting by breaking into this new source of data. And that kind of intelligent automation end-to-end is something that has really been a real game changer for them. And we're handling 5 figures worth of claims a month for this company. So this is at really big scale. The other point to think about the intelligent automation platform we have is it's entirely ring-fenced, and we're deploying it onto their private cloud. So not a single one of their customer calls is leaving their environment. And that's a lot of use of intelligent deployment technologies, containerization, and so forth. There's also a lot of domain modeling we do there, which allows us to do a lot of customization depending on specific terms of a policy, whether it's a life policy, an insurance policy for a car or for a home. So the second example I want to use to bring to life is, again, from the insurance world, and again, it's around customer success, and it's a relatively new one for us. So again, we had an insurance company come to us and say, look, we capture customer surveys in an awful lot of ways. I think they get upwards of 20,000 a month across the different channels. They have surveys at the end of telephone calls. They have surveys through their web portal. And they were really trying to optimize their Net Promoter Score. And for those of you who don't know, Net Promoter Score is the difference between your promoters and your detractors. So you're focusing on trying to minimize the number of people who give you a 0 to 6 and maximize the number of people giving you 9s and 10s. And again, similar to the last speaker, they really didn't know what was going on in the box underneath. And they had a structured data point in terms of the value of the Net Promoter Score, but they weren't able to parse the 20,000 reasons for those Net Promoter Scores in any way that was efficient. What we did on the platform is quite simply we passed all of that through one of our inference components, and we really nailed down on the kind of the interesting points at the high end of the 6s and on the 8s and 9s, and we said, okay, we'll have a look and see what are the reasons why people are giving 6s. And actually, you could see that wait time was really driving the majority of those scores. So we fed that back to them automatically, actually, and they're able to, and we break that down by call center location, by call handler type, by claim type, by conversation type. There's a whole road of further drill down they can have, and that allows them then to focus on trying to drive that upwards. That will have a real impact on the Net Promoter Score. And on the other side, you could see that product features were one of the reasons that they were getting more 8s. And that's again fed into their product design process. So there's a whole other team, a product team, that is getting that information in an automatic way that allows them to make that action. And so this happens consistently on every month that's been processed, and that's helping them to drive upwards on their Net Promoter Score. So those are 2 really quick examples of how intelligent automation at a slightly broader context is being used. I think our platform is a way that we use to make it extremely simple for large organizations. And thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Richie. All right, so hopefully from that you've seen these 3 perspectives that are all contributing to this new way of engaging with customers and opportunities for innovation in customer care. There's another question, though, I think that we need to answer, which is, how do these automation elements and how do the people interact? How does that work? Because you can't have a fully automated system, that's probably not practical, and a completely human system isn't really taking advantage of scale. So Naomi Fitzpatrick from Intercom is going to talk a little bit about, as a product manager at Intercom, their suite and what Intercom is doing to help customers innovate in this space. So please, Naomi, join us.
Yep, so as Julian said, I'm going to talk a little bit about customer care at Intercom. My name's Naomi Fitzpatrick. I'm a product manager at Intercom, and I'm looking after our support suite at the moment. Prior to that, I was at a company called Herman, who I was leading their product in UX. They surface data insights about how people think. And prior to that, I was at a company called SwiftKey, which is a language prediction keyboard, and I launched it for iOS, and it appeared in the best apps of 2014, Apple's best apps of 2014. But back to Intercom. So how many people here actually use Intercom or have heard of Intercom? Awesome, that's really great. I'd love to speak to anyone who uses Intercom for support afterwards. I'd love to just pick your brains afterwards, that'd be great. Intercom is essentially a platform for our customers to talk to their customers personally and at scale. And this is our brand promise, faster growth through better relationships. And the better relationships part of that brand promise is really key, because we don't just want it to be a good experience for the people in customer support or customer care. We want it to be a really good experience for their customers as well. So the better relationships is really key. So there's a couple of things I was going to talk about today. Just generally, what does support look like at Intercom, customer support? What do bots look like in those support teams? And then what we've learned about building bots and Messenger and chat in general. So support in Intercom. Oh, the fonts are peculiar. Yeah, they really are. So I don't know whether anyone's seen one of these on in-app or on a website. Basically, we have a messenger for web or an app, and this lets our customers chat directly with their customers, and we also offer faster support within those messengers via apps. We also have a help center or knowledge base, which our customers use to basically create help content. They can surface that within the messenger, and then that allows them to divert questions away from their team. We have bots as well. So we have answer bot, custom bots, task bots. They all do kind of a similar sort of task of responding really quickly to specific interactions, questions, tasks. It allows our customers to automate really quick replies. And it also allows teams to support their customers when actually the teams are completely offline. And then lastly, we have the team inbox, which is actually where all of the teammates interact with their customers and also each other, and allows them to kind of personalize those replies to the people that they're speaking to. And this is a really great quote from one of our customers at Expensify, and he kind of sums it up really nicely, because the platform basically allows you to have this continuing conversation with all of your customers throughout the life cycle, and that's how you kind of build relationships, build that kind of like personal interaction with people by actually seeing them throughout the journey whilst they're with you. So that's really important. So what do bots look like in support teams? Typically, I think people imagine this kind of setup where you have your support team and then you just like plonk a bot like exactly in the space where you would normally have someone in your team. And that's kind of like they're taking up a whole holistic role that a human takes up, and it really makes them part of the team. But what we're actually seeing is something that's a little bit more like this, where you have a full support team, but you have these bots in place that enable the team to do things that they wouldn't be able to do before, handle more conversations, handle scale. So it ends up looking a little bit more like this. In terms of what the teammates, the humans, the people are doing on those kind of conversations, obviously we're much better at handling things around empathy, or in cases where you haven't actually seen that problem before, so new problem solving. So things like people messaging in about an accident they've had. A bot's not particularly good at understanding that that person actually needs an empathetic reply. And there are cases where, like, I don't know, some people have an accident and they really want a hug. Some people really don't want a hug. And a human can usually infer that kind of thing from a conversation, whereas a bot, not so much. And then there are these cases where something entirely new and unexpected happens, and a person really has to think outside the box to understand what to do next. And bots don't tend to be as good at that either. So in terms of the way that, like, people communicate, especially with lots of new technology, and just like the nuances of language, like I think Hans was saying earlier, is really, really quite sophisticated. And bots always tend to lag behind. They're not as sophisticated as we are, obviously. However, bots can become more sophisticated if you teach them. So, for example, this is an example from one of the previous slides, but we've actually seen that there was something happening. It was unexpected, so we actually then taught the bot how to respond to that unexpected event. But they're also really good at responding to the types of, predictable pieces of conversations, like the beginnings and ends of conversations, where people tend to use similar wording, similar types of things like hi, hello, good morning. You can usually get a bot to kind of answer those types of things. Or at the end of conversations where it's like, thanks, bye, cheers, see you. You can usually get a bot to answer those types of interactions as well. And using the combination of like humans and bots at the same time, and also lots of other things like apps and some of the help content, this has really helped some of our customers. So for example, Danny has managed to switch his team to using Intercom and manages to answer 179% more cases than previously, just through using that platform. And then George at One Signal, he managed to improve the CSAT score for his team by 5% and drop the inbound requests by around about a quarter, while still maintaining a good experience for end users, just because they were able to answer questions by themselves without a teammate. The interesting thing here, I think for me anyway, is that CSAT score and improving that, because usually you kind of think a human will be able to improve these things, but with a bot you won't necessarily. And that's definitely not what we're around. We're really looking for how do we actually do automation, but in a way that doesn't degrade the experience for our customers. So what have we learned whilst building this messenger and all of these bots and integrations and automations? That has gone crazy. So that does actually say specific problems. So tackling really specific problems has kind of been key to automating a lot of different things. So things that have been like really repeatable, like the same question over and over again, or the same task over and over again, that's where we've really managed to improve things via bots. Things where they have to be done in a timely way, so times where you want to give an instant response. So if someone has a question and you have a frequently asked question that already answers that, why not deliver it to them immediately? Or if you have out of office hours, why not get someone, or a bot rather, to respond to that person immediately, even if there's no one else there, just letting them know, the team will be back in roughly 4 hours. Or the team usually respond within this amount of time. It just gives that person a bit of confidence to know what's going to be happening. And equally, something that we found really, really useful is just limiting the amount of times that a bot will actually get involved in a conversation. So that, by that I mean, rather than trying to answer every single question throughout the whole line of a conversation, where you need all of the context from the beginning of the conversation all the way through to the end, actually just tackling the initial question at the beginning, or a couple of questions or specific moments in that conversation, seem to be much better, because you don't need the bot to understand all of this like huge amount of conversation that's happened previously and that huge amount of context, which is hard. All of these are going to be mad in terms of fonts. So this one's around combining skills. So once you've got all of those like little pieces of skill sets, little building blocks, it's actually really awesome to combine them to create a fuller experience. So getting a couple of like different interactions and threading a story throughout them, or threading an experience throughout them. So you have these very specific interactions as your little key pieces, and then you can almost build like a holistic experience across the full length of a conversation. And that's really, really useful. And you can use something like that really strategically, like, for example, supporting an event, or supporting a campaign that's going out. You can get bots to kind of answer those initial hello, goodbye, thank you requests, and also like get someone's email address or like send them a piece of information afterwards. They can be used quite strategically like that. And then lastly, bailing does not equal failing. And this is really kind of something that I just really enjoy. I don't know why. But the fact that you're bailing out in terms of your bot is handing over to a human is not failing. That's one of the best places for you to be able to learn what works and what doesn't work. So, for example, when your bot is trying to answer conversations and questions over and over again, actually for the end user, that's really horrible because they're just trying and failing, and actually at that point, you should know, do you know what, actually, let's hand over to a human at this point, and they'll be able to answer the question much more easily. That's also the best point at which to learn what to automate next. So, for example, if your bot tends to fail or bail at round about the same point in a conversation or to do with the same kind of topic, that gives you a really good signal of what's the best thing to automate next or what's the most impactful thing that you could automate next. And then lastly, on this one, that handover point between a bot and a human is a really important piece to kind of do gracefully. So obviously with a bot you get a lot of, you have the ability to send over a lot of data and a lot of context to that human, that teammate who's going to take on the conversation. So you really want to make sure that the context that has been captured by that bot ends up in the teammate's hands so it's a really smooth transition. I think that's really important. That's something we've learned. So this is just a little example of AnswerBot at Intercom in action. And there's 3 points in this which I think are really, really important. So that first blue box, this is when an end user has actually written in. So the first thing for AnswerBot is to be able to understand that piece of text, that piece of conversation. So we spent a really long time working out how to make sure that our customers were able to train our bots to understand different pieces of conversations. So that ended up being a huge piece of just design and engineering work where we tried to get it, because not everyone has the mental model of how to train a bot. So actually kind of guiding people through that was a real challenge. The second piece is the white pieces from AnswerBot themselves. Those are actually written by people on the team. So you're able to actually create really specific answers to those types of questions. And I think having that specificity in what the bot is actually saying is also really, really important. And then lastly, we have these 3 little buttons that the end user can click. Which basically give us an idea of, is the bot performing well? Has this answered the question? With the kind of that helped thumbs up. Or is it kind of in the right realms of what the person was looking for, but just not quite the answer that they were looking for, in which case they can click show me more. And then lastly, they can click wait for the team if it's kind of like, actually, I want to bail out of this automated system. I really just want to speak to a human. So those are the 3 really important pieces, I think, when we were considering AnswerBot and building that for teams. And then we have Winston at Product Board, and I think this is such a wonderful quote because it demonstrates that he was able to divert questions from teammates by getting AnswerBot and some of our other bots to actually suggest help content that already existed within the platform. But the key thing is it was still providing a really great customer experience, which is what's really important to us, I think. So, wow, that one's gone totally crazy. Thanks for listening. I hope that's been at least a little bit insightful. You can catch me online at Naomi Bianca Fitz. And if you are using Intercom for support or thinking about using a business messenger, especially for customer care or support, I would love to either chat to you afterwards or online. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you. Brilliant. Okay, so what's coming up 6? So the only thing stopping you from getting a lovely drink is me. I don't want to be that person. But I did want you to reflect a moment on the tools that we presented today that give you an opportunity to take your business forward and provide great customer care in maybe ways that you hadn't necessarily experienced before. And so those tools and this panel of people who've just presented, the great senior leaders who are innovating in this space, are available for a brief conversation after this if you'd like to have some follow-up questions, because what I do guarantee is they haven't answered all your questions. So without further ado, let's wrap up today, and thank you once again for the speakers.